it's time now for the week that was, when we take a look at the top stories that made headlines around the globe this week. And we start with the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, who is advocating alternative dispute resolution instrument so as to free the courts from what he described as unnecessary cases, which, according to him, overstretch the judiciary. Ariwoola, while urging Nigerians to be less litigious, reminded the public that there must always be a winner and a loser after every legal firework. He said Nigeria could not import foreign laws to try local cases, as some litigants would erroneously and desperately want the courts to do in the quest to get victory. His statement was a response to an apparent reference to the last presidential election litigation, where the opposition parties used evidence from courts in the United States to challenge President Bola Tinubu's qualification to vie for the presidency. The CJN said it would do everything possible to ensure that the Apex Court attain its full complement of 21 justices before retiring next year. Interesting development from the Chief Justice, of Nigeria, Kayode Ariwoola, but of course it's not new. I mean, this is something that has been saying that the courts are overwhelmed and there must be some forms of reforms on the one hand, and on the other hand, kind of attitudinal change on the part of Nigerians so that the courts will be less stuffed. And I think at this way you might have some thoughts, given that you are a lawyer.
I will say that being a lawyer, working in the magistrate courts before, every lawyer has to work in one court or the other before you graduate from law school. Our wheels of justice move too slow in this country. Mm-hmm. Access to justice is a severe problem for most Nigerians. Yeah. But I don't agree with the Chief Justice in saying that Nigerians are too litigious, like we're running to the courts. No, the courts are overburdened. But even the Supreme Court he sits on, there are only 10 justices out of the 21
mandatory.
Yeah. So yes, the justices are overwhelmed, but also there are problems even with in-house. I think they also have to look in-house. But our justices are overwhelmed. You have even down to the magistrate courts, they have an overload in the cases that they're handling. But we also do already have alternative dispute resolutions, But some cases, legally, they have to go to the higher courts. He's saying that, in the statement, he also said he feels some cases should end at the Court of Appeal.
Exactly, that not every case
has to get to the Supreme Court.
Which I think is fair. But if you look at the caseload and in the judgments that they've given, quite a lot in the past year are political. Yeah. And I think when we talk about justice in Nigeria, we often focus on our elections and the political side, which is fair, which is very valid. But we also have to think about the thousands of Nigerians right now who do not have proper access to justice, whose cases have been in the courts for years on end, and they haven't been able to even, see a magistrate or see a judge or see a justice. So,
or those who are even in correctional centers, for years, without justice.
Yes, especially when you look at maybe cases that might not necessarily need to go all the way, I say petty crimes or whatnot that just can be, settled almost immediately. But then when you think about it, the CJN has putting this statement out really is against the backdrop, or like you said, of the enormous workload that the 10-member Supreme Court currently grapples with. Yes. And many of them are civil cases as well as political cases that are lingering for years before determination. He said something that caught my eye. He said, you don't need to rush to court for every little disagreement. We have to begin to look at these different ADRs, alternative dispute resolution mechanisms across the country that we can conveniently rely on, leverage on, with a view of freeing the courts. Another important element for me, which I don't understand why we've not been able to, marry technology and the judicial system. It still feels as if everything is still very
paper-based.
Paper.
Yes.
It's not digitally at 100%. And I feel like if we're able to do that, it will definitely reduce the workload. Right now, I can go on my laptop. If I'm searching for a particular case in the US and I have the person's number or the case ID, I can type it in, and all the information comes up. But we don't have that right now. And I've been to certain courts where you see the piles of files and paperwork, and of course, that in itself is overwhelming.
The courts, if you remember, experimented with the idea of virtual courts immediately after COVID. But once things became kind of normalized, the courts simply went back to the old order. I think that's part of the areas where improvement should be. I think one of the things that we should also learn is to look at how when the Brazilian courts, when the Indian courts were overwhelmed, countries with huge headcounts like Nigeria, if not more, how did they tackle it? I think those are the kind of things that we should learn one or two things from.
Look at international best practices and see how to tackle it. I agree with you 100%. Well, that's a good place to stop on that story. Let's move on now to our next story. President Bola Tinubu has told Nigerians that he was aware of their current pains, or he is aware of their current pains, but assured them that they were only temporary hardships meant to birth permanent gains. Speaking through Vice President Kashim Shettima at the opening ceremony of the 2023 National Engineering Conference in Abuja, Tinubu stated that the ongoing reforms were meant to secure the future of Nigeria. The president declared that Nigeria's problem was not its huge population, but the inability to harness the potential of its vast population of young people. He stressed that Nigeria had the potential of becoming a $1 trillion economy, adding that he intends to prioritize job creation, access to capital for small and large-scale businesses, adherence to the rule of law, and the fight against hunger, poverty, and corruption. Wow, okay. All right. When this came out, like Twitter was, or rather X was on fire, because it still feels as if, the president is listening to the people, because he has acknowledged the current pains that Nigerians are going through. But, when you say that it's a temporary setback, for future permanent gains, instead of saying that, how about properly, share with Nigerians the strategy that you have to bring more people out. The promise was to bring people out of poverty, but since coming into power, more people have fallen into poverty. He did say that since taking away, or since putting an end to fuel subsidy, we've been able to save $1 trillion. Was it $1 trillion, or is it $1
trillion naira?
$1 trillion naira from fuel subsidy. But then, how has that translated into helping the Nigerian people? It was supposed to be, school loans were supposed to have started, in September. It's been moved again to January. We're looking at a situation where, the price of, the exchange rates, floating of the naira hasn't necessarily reflected, the economic policies that have been put in place. People are feeling, the grunt of these economic decisions and policies that have been put in place. Now we've seen the budget for the 2024 budget submitted, We're still waiting for the National Assembly to approve it, but there are just certain things in there that makes you feel like, what's really going on with our nation, And I can see you nodding.
Because, I feel that the president has maybe a bit of a communication problem right now, or maybe it's an optics problem. Because if a man tells me he's broke, if I see him and 20 of his friends or 50 of his friends flying on a PJ on Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to have questions, We are being told that we should bear the grunt of the policies, that we should feel the pinch. And the average Nigerian, everyone I feel, is feeling the pinch of these economic hardships that we're under. But we do not see our president downsizing. We do not see our House of Reps downsizing. We do not see the Senate downsizing. We do not see the head of the civil service downsizing. You cannot tell me that you care about the level of poverty and hardship in this nation, and you are buying new Lexus, or you are buying a new SUV.
They need it for the roads.
Okay, but me too. I'm driving on the bad road, and I'm not buying a new car every 4 years.
Who was supposed to fix
Yes, you know. And I think, you know, if you don't hold yourself to a certain standard, then you cannot expect me to believe that you mean well for the Nigerian people. If you look at the amount of delegates Nigeria has taken now to COP28, it bears to, you know, it bears for us to ask the question that what is really going on? Like, it's just a fake life.
The cost of governance is something
I totally agree with you, ladies. But you see, the president is saying what is expected of him. And I think that he will continue to say more of that. The whole idea, in my opinion, is to reassure Nigerians, is to reiterate the fact that he's feeling their pain and that he's walking, you know, the journey with them. How convincing is that, though? I think that's the problem. And what we are doing is to echo the voices of the voiceless, you know, those that you can't get to listen to on a daily basis. Shelito mentioned the part about the budget, because that's the measure of expectation for this December in a way, and especially for the entire 2024. So our reassuring, for example, would be this budget of renewed hope. You know, people who are captured, people who are practically, you know, hopeless, majority of them. How reassuring will this budget be for them? And for those who have looked at it very critically, there is a tinge of promise, but you know, just a tinge, very, very little, not much that you can hold on to, given the budget performance of 2023, you know, which in any way, didn't quite improve the lot of Nigeria. So when you say out of 27.5 trillion naira, the biggest ever for the country, that only capital expenditure will be 8.7 trillion. Compare that to 9.92, almost 10 trillion that you are voting for recurrent. Recurrent are your salaries. You know, you need to buy this, buy that, training, including the cars that you would drive, including the renovations. You know, recurrent that brings nothing back into the system. Recurrent is bigger, far bigger, you know, than capital expenditure. Capital expenditure at 8.7. Cast your mind to the current budget year of 2023. Only 25% of the capex, as low as it is compared to what Tinubu has proposed, only 25% of it was released. So there was no money to do many things. How much of the 18.32 trillion that Nigeria is proposing to make as revenue in 2024 will be realizable? At
let's not forget the debt servicing as well.
Absolutely, which will take, how much would that take? It will take about 9.18 trillion, almost 10 trillion, out of the 18 that you are hoping that you will to make, which you may not make. So it's tight, you know, so the belt tightening for Nigerians can be solely, you know, for the poor people.
Yes.
You know,
And
demonstrate that you truly understand what the people are feeling by elected officers, by, you know, from local government up to, you know, those who sit in Abuja and say that, you know, they are already thinking of what to share for the Yuletide season. So, I mean, this is what the people are thinking.
And I think this is also why the Orosari report, you know, remains relevant, because
the mergers of the agencies, or which one?
Yes, it's because, you know, if all these recurring costs we're talking about, we need to downsize our government.
This budget hasn't shown
like,
that we desperately need that.
Desperately need to downsize our government. Maybe not creating new ministries or creating new roles. We need to really cut costs, and it must start from the top down.
But Tinubu's government, fortunately or unfortunately, is the biggest in terms of cabinet size that we've ever witnessed.
Yes.
Biggest anywhere in Africa. I don't get the point why you need so many ministers, so many advisors, so many assistants here and there, you know, all feeding of the public purse.
This is our next story.
Yeah, so I think now we will move on to the President General of Ohaneze Ndigbo Worldwide, Emmanuel Iwunyanwu, on Thursday, appealed to the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, to intervene on the ongoing demolition of buildings in Lagos State, which he says affects a number of Igbo-owned properties in the state. Iwunyanwu made this special appeal at a press conference in Abuja, where the Igbo Social Cultural Group met with stakeholders to establish an Ohaneze relief agency to support Igbo citizens in distress and other Nigerians in need of help. Nwayu promised to meet with Sanwo-Olu to appeal for the suspension of the demolition exercise until all the facts are cleared.
I've been watching with pens some children crying. I have seen a pathetic site where children came back from school, their home is being demolished, they were crying, they were shedding tears. I was moved as a human being, as a father. I know what is I come back and see my children crying because they're now a few hours before they had a home, now they are homeless. It's a very painful thing. I'm investigating the matter. Any of our people who actually had a proper approval by the agency and whose home is being destroyed, Ohaneze will stand by them to make sure that reparation is paid to them. And I pray if Tinubu take a position on this matter, this thing will change, because as a governor of Lagos State, we didn't have any problem. So I believe that will help.
Yeah, so I apologize to Mr. Emmanuel Imuanyanwu for...
All right, I'm going to correct you. I think we should take the next story so that we can discuss those two together.
Okay.
Go on.
In the meantime, one of the affected victims, Henry Arizechi, who is the chairman of King's Royal Estate in Festac, has claimed that his home was demolished by the Zonal Southwest FHA Lagos and not by the Lagos state government. Arizechi made the claim on our nightly news program, Newsnight. He further alleged that the FHA is involved in racketeering for the purpose of allocating land to the highest bidder and called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to wade into the matter.
We are homeless. Some people are now in the hospital because of the trauma. Do you know that some of us were given only 1 hour in the wee hours of the night to vacate our houses? And if you refuse, they will throw tear gas in your room, in your houses. They don't even want to know whether there are newborn babies in that house. My windscreen, the windscreen of my car got broken, and I had a black eye because I asked them, why should they be here by this time? See, I want you to also know that there are another dimension to this matter. There are land racketeering in Lagos FHA here. I don't see the reason why a contravention bill will be issued to us and we are responding. We are paying. As I am talking to you, I have receipt of payments I made. I have contravention issued to us. But the Lagos FHA here turned a deaf ear. They are breaking those houses to give it to other people that may have paid, or people they want to reallot the land to. They are claiming that those people had that allocation donkey years ago. They have never proven that.
The right to housing is a human right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's a protected human right.
Yeah.
However, I think we're now seeing a tribal element entering this conversation. And I think it's something that we need to be very careful of. This last story we saw, I believe, is under the Federal Housing Authority. That's not
right.
under the power...
FHA.
Yes, the FHA is not under the power of the Lagos state.
He said so, the gentleman, Henry Arizechi said so.
And I think it's something that needs to be understood in the conversations that are probably having, people are having online or, on WhatsApp, is that some of these things are not under Governor Sanwo-Olu or the Lagos state government. If this is a federal case, then it's a federal matter. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think that those are two important stories. I like the clarification by the gentleman there, Henry Arizechi, who said clearly that my home in Festac area of Lagos was not demolished by Lagos State. Before you start saying that, Sanwo-Olu is just bulldozing everywhere. It was clear, to lay the blame clearly at the doorstep of FHA, the Federal Housing Authority. And he made, claims that ought to be investigated about the racketeering going on in terms of lands, being allocated and sold, and in terms of, the manner in which the demolitions are going on. When things like this happen, and that also directly relates to the first story about the Ohanaeze Ndigbo, Chief Emmanuel Iwuanyanwu saying that Ohanaeze Ndigbo will stand by any Igbo man in Lagos State with the necessary approvals whose house has been unfairly demolished. Okay, that's a good thing, to say, but I would have imagined that the first thing that the Ohanaeze Ndigbo ought to have asked for is that bring out your approvals. Yes. A couple of weeks ago, we had here the gentleman who was at the Tokunbo Wahab, the Commissioner for Environment, who laid it bare, and he dared people. He said, if you think that you've been unfairly treated and your homes have been, unfairly bulldozed, come forward and show us the evidence, the approvals. We haven't seen one. Yeah. And it went for that to say that this is not just about, it's nonsense to be talking about tribe, because he cited the example of a sitting local government chairman in Lagos State, an APC member, of course, naturally, who was also affected and who tried to circumvent the law. And they clearly told him that, no, this is what the law says. Okay, maybe you might appeal to the emotions of the governor to say, hey, take it easy. Things are tough at this time. People are struggling. Let's find a way, maybe we can extend the warning or the notice that you have issued to them so that people can, do self-rectification and then, plead for that. But to say that, because they are from a particular part of the country, which is not wholly, wholly true, there are other people from other parts of the country whose houses are affected. And you need to also realize that most of these houses, especially in the Ikota area of Lagos, were hurriedly built during the COVID era, when people were not looking, when, everything was in disarray. People didn't even know that, even they wake up the next day. So we saw that people try to take advantage of the law, whether it is possible that they obtain what they thought were approvals or were fake. That's why they are not able to, present them. But if that's what they have, who do you blame?
Definitely.
You're the one that patronized touts in the name of seeking approval. So I cannot see where condemnation from the facts before us at this point should go to the Lagos State government, either the governor or the commissioner that is there. But then again, if Ohanaeze is saying, please, let's engage more, let's delay a bit. But then what do you now say to those in all those estates that are saying that because of all these structures, they are building on canals, are breaking the flow of water and flooding, which is a major problem in some parts of Lagos. It's affecting people, especially during rainy season. What do you say to those people? Should they suffer because some people have illegally erected multi-million or billion naira structures just because they are smart businessmen? No, I don't think that should be allowed.
I agree with you 100%. And, like you said, when we had Mr. Tokunbo Wahab, he was very specific about the fact that they had even reached out to some of these people ahead of time. We heard Mr. The second gentleman there talking about how they gave him just 1 hour in the middle of the night to pack out. And what we found out is that a lot of times they are told ahead of time, but they keep saying, nothing is going to happen, the government is not going to do anything. And then when it eventually happens, they take to the street and of course, cry, about it. But it's very important that we continue to play the victim, to continue to urge Nigerians to, of course, shun wrong profiling. Of course, there's no reason why it should become a tribal issue. And then, of course, like you said, all leaders should emulate, of course, the best behavior. When we're looking at the Ohanaeze, if you are indeed, if you have the right approvals, then bring it forward, and then your case can be taken forward as well. Don't, tell property owners need to obey the right laws, and if that happens, then we would not have this situation at all. I think that's a good place.
Just a quick one. I hope that I've been saying stuff on social media. I hope that where Chief Emmanuel Iwuanyanwu spoke yesterday, that part of what he said didn't contain what has been circulated, on social media about the fact that many of the areas that are now developed in Lagos State were slums before some people from certain parts of Nigeria went there to invest. I think that would be very incorrect and would be very insensitive, given what he said just before the elections, earlier in the year about, the Igbos and the Yorubas and things like that. I think that we should just be careful so that we don't, on the one hand, play the victim, and on the other hand, try to, light fire, to a very sensitive and volatile subject. I think that Ohaneze should, tread carefully.
Definitely.
I also think the government of Lagos should be sensitive to the tribal situation.
Every government should be
on.
sensitive.
Yes.
Every government should be sensitive.
Well, that's all that we have on the week that was.